Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Perfect Madness Podcast. And today we are talking about the Raw reaction. With us is Adam Eaton.
How's it going?
Do we really
Again,
need to
here to
do introductions
say
at the top of the show? Everybody knows
what?
who we are. Do we need to do
Yeah,
introductions at the top of the show?
no, I don't think so. If they don't know by now, they could go back and watch a previous podcast to find out who we
Yeah.
are.
If you don't know who the hell we are yet, what are you doing with your time?
You're using the internet wrong.
You're using the internet wrong. Exactly. Let's just jump right into the Raw reaction. We're not going to be like other boring podcasts, and everybody wants to put out an article where they want to scathe Raw and everything. We want to talk about a few key points of Raw, the good, bad, and the ugly, as we like to say here, and jump right in because if we break it down segment by segment, I'm bored, you're bored. Who cares if Adam Eaton's bored? And we want to keep it fun and exciting. So the one thing that we both really got annoyed with on Raw last night, to the point where we messaged each other. I don't know if that was the first time I messaged you or what, but it was the NXT Divas, and I like to think that we have a pretty interesting take on it. Um, the internet was all abuzz because obviously the best women, the best female wrestlers in WWE right now are in NXT up until last night. But the way they got introduced was all wrong. And I'm going to let Adam Eaton take it away because he was more angry about this than I.
Yeah, last night I was extremely angry. You messaged me because I was actually able to Raw live, and I was participating in one of the groups on Facebook's Raw discussion. What I noticed was everybody loved this segment, and I'm still trying to figure out why. The First of all, having Stephanie McMahon out there just ruined the entire thing for me right off the bat. So really, no matter what happened afterwards, I really didn't care because Stephanie McMahon was in the ring. Second of all, the way she was in the ring was just so completely stupid. She's one of the top heels in the company right now, and she comes out acting like a face. Like, why? Why does Stephanie have anything to do with the Divas division at all? The last time we seen her was back in, what, August, I want to say, that had anything to do with any Divas.
Was that an
When
NXT?
it was at SummerSlam, she wrestled Brie, but then
Oh yeah,
after that, like, she had nothing to do with the Divas at all.
I know she did something in NXT, but I can't tell you when it was. Where she talked about, it's the place for women's wrestling. She cut a big long promo. But I want to start first with Stephanie and ask you this question: what do you hate more about this segment? Her being out into the ring, or coming out to the ring, or just or her entrance music? Like, I think, what are your thoughts on her entrance music? I'll frame it to you that way first.
um, I don't really mind her entrance music, but like it's been so long since I've seen her. It played, and I was like, "Oh, that music sounds familiar," but I didn't realize it was Stephanie until they showed her. Like, there's
See,
nothing that gravitates me towards like, "Oh, it's Stephanie McMahon."
and that's what my biggest issue is right now with her is that, like, not to compare her to her father or anything, but you knew when Vince was coming out, the owner of the company. You knew when he was coming out because you heard you had that couple like second or two of where you didn't hear anything, and then you just hear no chance. I'm like, oh shit, you knew business was about to pick up.
Well,
But for her, what?
her last entrance music, when she was like the GM of SmackDown and stuff, like that
Yeah,
one wasn't bad either. But this
I
one is just like, I don't know.
I agree. I like her old entrance music, but whatever this is that she's been using for a while now, like it takes her halfway to the ring before I realize who it is. And I just
Exactly. I was like, is this an old diva coming out? Like, what's going on? And then it's like,
yeah,
oh, it's Stephanie. That's right. It just sounded like a generic divas music from like 2003.
and that's exactly how I feel about it. I feel like it doesn't make her stand out and hurts her character. Just like anytime you hear Cesaro come out to that terrible music. But that's a topic that we're going to get to later.
The Scott Steiner music.
Yeah. At least there's no hurricane coming through. I think that's the first bad note we get. It doesn't draw the viewer right away. For me, who was talking in the ring? Was it Bella at the time or was it Paige?
Nikki.
It was Nikki, and then the
Nikki
music
was.
starts playing. We're like, oh wait, that's a minor inconvenience. Oh no, here comes Stephanie, and I feel like
And
oh, go on.
the first question is, here comes Stephanie, and the first question is, why? It wasn't, oh, business is about to pick up, like, oh, what's going on here? It was, why? And not an exciting why, like, what is she doing out here? It was like, why is she out here?
It's more of like a farting Natalia why of just why. I mean, ultimately that's what it is. It's just so stupid in my opinion. And then she gets into the ring and completely changed character.
Right. She was acting face, and I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, okay. So there's no mention of how she gave Nikki her title shot for helping her back at SummerSlam, which would have made sense and been like, okay, well now everything's rounding out after a year, but Nikki's abusing her power, blah blah blah. But no, there is no mention of that. But what did she mention? The U.S. soccer team and the UFC, which some people said that. Maybe it's trying to set up the Rousey match at WrestleMania 32.
That's a stretch.
I think it's a stretch. I think if they were going to do that, they could have used Triple H, and I'll explain that in a minute. But just to have Stephanie out there and out of character to what her character is usually just was mind-boggling, and I couldn't get past it.
For those of you that follow us on the Perfect Madness Twitter account, I was actually on there last night. That's how bored I was with Raw. Like, I already had nothing to do, so I was like, "Hey, I'll watch Raw. Why not?" It's 7:00, and then I just like, "Well, this is freaking boring." Halfway through the opening promo, and I got on Twitter and started talking. And one of the things I'd really like Stephanie to do to really I can't think of the right word, to really like tap into her roots as a promoter from her dad. She mentioned the U.S. soccer team. She mentioned Ronda Rousey. She also mentioned Serena Williams. Personally, I would love to see Serena Williams versus Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam. And I think as a promoter, she should make that happen. I feel like that was the only reason they mentioned them, because otherwise nobody really cared. They'd be like, "Oh, Serena." If my wife didn't like tennis, I really wouldn't have cared. Like, "Oh, Serena won something. Good for her."
I didn't even catch that part in her promo.
Yeah, that was I think like the second thing she said is Serena winning the Wimbledon or Serena Williams or something. I don't remember. It was really stupid, and the only reason I remember it is because I made a joke out of it and sent a tweet about her booking it to make it happen.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, her just mentioning that, and even to your point of, I mean, you could bring up a storyline from 11 months ago. Why don't you, continuity to characters is something that we're missing a whole bunch of, and it's hurting the business and like the WWE, my interest, because it doesn't matter when I tune in, because every day they're just gonna make up their own story, and I don't have to follow it from week to week.
Right. It was, I don't know. I didn't even know how to wrap my head around it because there was so many issues with this segment. Because like first we're like, why is Stephanie out there? And then I was thinking back, well, she did give Brie her title or Nikki her title shot because she did help her, so she could say that. And Stephanie could have still been a heel and be like, Nikki, you're on par to be the greatest champion ever, blah blah blah. Then you have Paige come out, and everything could have just been done so differently and made more sense than the heel authority figure introducing face characters to fight the heel champion. And why would you just team them up together? I don't understand. Like,
And to
why would you just
continue,
say,
why would you put them in the groups that they put them in? I think is my question.
Right. I don't get that. Like, this isn't War Games. This isn't like, okay, it's going to be you, and you on your team. But even so, War Games, Lethal Lockdown, anything where you select your team, you don't have the authority figure picking your team for you. Like, they pick their team, and then, like, the face goes and picks their team. Like, there's not, like, oh, cool, like, you pick sides. Like,
And what is
it's like,
a three little stable, I don't know if you call it stable or team or whatever, but a three little stable group within the division gonna matter? Why wouldn't you put the NXT women together? Or why wouldn't you like they just needed something for Tamina and Snooki. Or Snooki, wow. Fuck me. Um
Tamina Snooki.
wow. I don't know why you thought of Snooki.
It's
Robbie
because
ate a
Tamina
cookie?
Snuka and then Naomi, so you put Snuka and
Yeah,
Naomi together.
I'm just going with
Okay.
that. Let me go with Team Snooki. Um God. I just remembered Snooki was on WrestleMania, and now it makes me even more angry. Um,
It's just there was no there's now no reason for any of it, like going forward. Like, yeah, Becky Lynch and Charlotte and Sasha are there in the division, but going forward, there's no reason now. Like, they just killed all reason. I was actually getting into the Bellas versus Paige and this war being drawn because I called it about a month ago that this is going to lead to the NXT Divas getting called up. There's so many ways they could have done it. If they wanted Stephanie out there, I mean, Paige could have come out. Stephanie should have aligned with the Bellas. Paige could have came out and said she went and got backup. Out comes Charlotte and Becky, and because Paige started in NXT, so it would make sense. Because she's like, if you guys up here are going to be jealous of my success as a only being here a couple years, well then I'm gonna go down and get the people that I started with, where I started, and we're gonna take over. It could have been like the nexus of the Divas division,
yeah.
but it just killed everything. I mean, you could have done the typical run-in of Paige getting beat down by the Bellas just because without Stephanie there, and then out comes Charlotte and Becky, and
I wouldn't have preferred that as much. I really liked the visual of the divas coming out, the NXT divas. Like, it was really cool to see Charlotte have her moment. It was really cool to see Sasha. Not so much Becky Lynch because she's hot garbage, but um, it was nice having that. I think a run out, a lot of people would have been confused on.
it's
But to
just
have them called out by Steph makes no sense.
right. Like, I think a run out makes more sense than what they did last night. But
Mm,
you could have
yeah.
the Bellas in the ring. This is what I would prefer. Like, going with the like almost like a run out, but also like the announcement, kind of combining the two. You have the Bellas in the ring. Stephanie doesn't come out, but Paige comes out. Then you have Paige say, "I went and found my backup where I started because I started NXT."
Yeah,
Introduce
no.
Charlotte, introduce Becky. Then you still have Naomi and Tamina come out, and they say like, "Oh, you guys thought you had backup. Well, I went and got my own." And then you bring out Sasha.
But Sasha makes no sense with those two.
She doesn't, but it would have been better had Naomi introduced her instead of Stephanie, because when Stephanie introduced her, she introduced her as if she was on a team with Paige and Charlotte and Becky. But then through
Yeah.
all the melee, she goes with Tamina and Naomi.
It made no sense. Like
The whole thing made no sense.
Naomi and
Like,
Snooki, Team Snooki, they just make no sense. Tamina and Naomi, like them together. Tamina is just I don't know why she still has a career. She's basically the R-Truth of the Divas division, and which I also commented, but I don't even want to get into that terrible fucking segment with Wade Barrett. Tamina just makes like, why are you still around? Do something. All you're doing is capitalizing and tarnishing your dad's name. Like, killing somebody allegedly was less damaging to him than his daughter in wrestling.
she does nothing. She's been AJ's bodyguard, and now she's Naomi's bodyguard.
She's just basically
Um,
the bodyguard, and just
she
like with
she
Summer
debuted
Rae
with the Usos.
is the WWE rebound chick, Tamina is the WWE bodyguard.
Yeah, but the difference between Summer Rae and Tamina is Summer Rae is not an actual wrestler, or she's not portrayed as an actual wrestler, so she could be out there and valet with whoever she wants, and
Yeah,
it's okay
whatever she
because
wants.
we're not expecting her to be the Divas champion. Like we're expecting great things from Tamina.
I guess I can see your logic there, but still,
So
they're ruining
back to
the chance to bring up somebody highly talented as Sasha. And another thing that bugged me is why didn't she bring her title?
yes. Oh, that pissed me off. Because if you watch Tough Enough, and I know there's really no like continuality between Tough Enough and the WWE like Raw, but last week on Tough Enough, the judges like I don't even remember their names because I don't care about anyone besides Patrick and really just besides Patrick. But one of the girls dropped her title in the ocean, and Paige just like obliterated her about always having your title. Like if that's your title, then you need to keep it and respect it and everything. And it's like then out comes Sasha Banks, who then now takes the champion, and she doesn't have her title. I'm
And
like,
that's what I was looking like under her jacket. Like, oh, okay, maybe she's not holding it for one. She actually has it on. And she takes her jacket off, and I'm like, oh, there's no title. Maybe it's just hidden, and she's pulling some David Copperfield shit. Like, I'm just waiting for that title to show up.
right. It was completely disrespectful because Kevin Owens kept the title shown on Raw every time he appeared. Every time he came out, he had the NXT champion with him.
I mean, if they're trying to not overshadow the Divas Championship, I guess. But that's not their fault that the title is so meaningless. That,
Right. And it's
and
just
I'm going.
yeah, that was another huge mistake I feel because you can't announce her as the champion and then not have her bring the champion and say they're so great, but she could really care less.
Which is another fun thing for the IWC. Remember, like 6 months ago or whatnot? It's been about 8 months ago now, when Brock Lesnar did run to the ring and he didn't have his title belt, and everybody was running, crying foul, like, "Oh my God, he doesn't care about the title. Why doesn't he bring the belt out?" Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
I can't remember why he came. He did a run in with Heyman, and he didn't have his belt with him in the beginning of Raw. Then at the end of Raw, he showed up on the Titantron with his belt. And I remember everybody like posting memes like the internet does and makes all kinds of jokes and yelling at Brock Lesnar at the height of he shouldn't have the title belt because he's a vacant champion. Oh, he just ran out on Raw and he doesn't have his title belt? When I
See, that
agree with
makes.
that. See,
But the thing is, if you're gonna do a run in, why would you run in with your title belt? Like that's just gonna slow you down.
because in the wrestling, my idea of it is you care so much about your title, you carry it with you everywhere.
Like I understand that, but if it's a
Oh,
run
I know.
in, but then later he's shown with the title, I just feel that's nitpicking. Like he left it in the back so he could do this run in and beat someone up,
It is
but now he has
nitpicking,
the title later.
but I feel like as much as them, like imagine, remember all the run-ins that, oh, excuse me, Austin did? He'd send that belt a good 30 feet into the ring, like from one side to the other, just to do his run in. He'd always throw
Yeah,
the damn thing. But it's because it just, I'm the champ. I want to have my title. Just at least bring it out on TV so it can be seen. But my point I want to
I
make is everybody then yelling at Brock Lesnar for, the error, if you want to call it that. But then talking about how great Sasha Banks is making her debut and not mentioning once that she didn't have her title. Because
it,
somehow it's okay because Sasha Banks is eye candy, where, Brock Lesnar, for shame.
and it just goes back to what we mentioned in one of the podcasts last week. I don't remember if it was one or two, but the
Technically 9
IWC
or
gives a
10.
pass. Yeah, part one or two, but 9 or 10. The IWC gives a pass to their favorite superstars or promotions or something. Like that segment last night was completely ridiculous and made no sense. But the dumbass Atlanta crowd, which pissed me off the entire night, um, was chanting, "This is awesome."
before the ladies even touched, if I remember correctly.
Right. It's like Charlotte comes out, Becky Lynch comes out, and they're sitting there chanting, "This is awesome." Like they did nothing, and Stephanie McMahon's given like one of the worst promos. Like, remember the conversation I told you last night? Like, I could just imagine the conversation in the back. Like, so Stephanie, this is what we're gonna have you do. We're gonna have you go out there during the Divas match or during the Divas segment, and you're gonna introduce these faces, and you're gonna be cheered by everyone. And Stephanie's like, "Oh, but I'm the biggest heel in the company." And then the writers are like, that doesn't matter because the IWC and WWE fans are idiots and they're just going to cheer because Sasha Banks and Charlotte and Becky are coming out and they're not going to care about anything. And then we want you to do the worst Jeff Jarrett impersonation ever.
Oh yeah, the strut.
The strut. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, she tried the wackest, weirdest Ric Flair strut that looked more like Double J's strut. And it was horrible.
Just wanted to see her like elbow drop something randomly.
No, it would have, I don't know.
Like
She would have
Flair
broke
always,
her elbow.
yeah, takes off her heel and just drops an elbow on it. And then the beatdown. Let's get to the final part of this. The beatdown. Or I don't even want to call it a beatdown. Just kind of a bunch of chicks in the ring flailing for nothing.
It was just a melee. I don't understand why.
It
I
accomplished
don't.
nothing.
It gave the NXT girls their spots, which could have been better. But I don't understand why you just like, here are your teams, now go. It's like your PE teacher saying, you guys, here's the teams here, here's the teams here, here's the teams here. Now let's play. Like, it was like schoolyard, and Stephanie McMahon was their yard duty.
I mean, she could have put someone in detention. But
She probably should
detention
have.
had to be a heel. The face would never
She
do
would have had
that.
a great character again.
And it just made no sense personally. Why you'd have them all melee each other? Because again, you have three teams. You're basically watching a triple threat melee. And I already hated triple threats. I think they haven't been good for a while. But then to add, three teams of three into a melee, it was terrible. It was hard to watch. It made no sense. And at the end, what did it accomplish? What is this
Right.
supposed to build towards?
Because then you have Team Paige and Team Snooki, like, in a stare down.
Yeah.
And then how did all of a sudden did it appear that Sasha was the leader of Naomi and Tamina?
Because she's the boss.
But it's just like, she's a rookie now, like, and you're gonna come in and lead these two who have been on the main roster. Like, I don't know. The whole segment didn't make sense. If they wanted someone out there to introduce him, I would have rather had them have Triple H out there rather than Stephanie. On two folds. One, if like someone said you're gonna do it to set up Rousey versus whoever at WrestleMania, well, the Triple H comes out and says down in NXT we have the toughest divas in the world. Well, then that's a shot. Like that could be considered a shot at UFC.
Yeah.
On top of that, NXT is Triple H's project. That Triple H runs that show. Those are Triple H's girls. Like it would have been better for him
I
to
was
do
kind
that.
of laughing at after Raw or after that segment, all three of them, or it wasn't all three. I think it was just Triple H, Sasha, and Charlotte had a photo together, and I'm just like, hey, it's like WrestleMania all over again, which is a really good moment because they were, I think it was 2 WrestleManias ago, on his entrance.
Right. And he could have played up to his history of forming DX, like the DX Army, when he went and got X-Pac and New Age Outlaws. He formed Evolution. He formed the Authority. Like Triple H has this thing about him where he forms these armies. He forms these groups. So to me, it just made more sense if he would have been the one to introduce them all and say, if you want an army or you need backup, then like here you go.
But then he would have also had to have broken character. And that almost would have been worse than Stephanie.
Um,
Even though he breaks
th-
character, in my opinion, every time he goes down to NXT, I feel like it's one of their continuity errors between the two promotions, if you want to call it that.
yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, but with Triple H, you can blur the line with reality and fiction, just because everyone knows, or the most of us know, that Triple H is the one who runs NXT. Like the people that know who Charlotte and Becky and Sasha are, they know it's because of Triple H.
Yeah, and
So
I think at the end of the day, what it works for him and why he can kind of transition between the two is the fact that he does what's best for business. He doesn't necessarily want to be good or bad. He just comes across as bad, but he's doing what's best for the company.
right, and I think if he would have introduced them, it just would have made more sense, even though it was kind of breaking character. But those are his girls, and
Yeah,
so he's like, he brings them up, and then they make their decision whether they're good or bad, instead of Stephanie just saying, "Hey, you're on Paige's team, so you guys are gonna be good guys now." It's like we're witnessing a freaking creative meeting in the middle of the ring.
I agree. You're on Team Snooki. We don't know what we're going to do with you, but hey, you're having your moment on TV.
And we want to get this clear. Not, I don't want to take anything away from the three that got called
Oh,
up.
yeah.
I'm happy for them. I'm excited to see what they're going to do. But at the same time, this segment did nothing for us. It builds nothing. And I just feel that the WWE is still saying we don't care about the Divas division because of this crap segment.
Agreed. And it doesn't make any um, sense long term because there was nothing really there for the viewer to get emotionally involved in this whole segment. What about it makes you want to tune in next week? What about it makes you want to tune into Battleground? That's the whole point of a go home show. And you brought it up that somebody commented in one of the groups about. Oh, you take it away. Do you remember what you said? What he said? Or do you
They
want me to try to
said,
find the photo?
no, I got it. They said something along the lines of Stephanie had to introduce him to make them big stars before the pay per view. My response to that was, why would you worry about making somebody a star 6 days before a pay per view? The answer is you want it. So it doesn't matter if they would have ran in or if they have been introduced. Like the fact of Battleground being Sunday doesn't matter for these girls, in my opinion, because they're not going to be a big star going into Battleground. Like, yeah, the internet knows who they are, but anyone who doesn't watch NXT doesn't know who they are. So it's just like you wouldn't worry about that. If they wanted to worry about these girls at Battleground, they should have debuted them last week or the week before or any time before last night.
You want to
But
give them a proper build.
the thing is, it's not about Battleground, and we got to look forward to SummerSlam. Does Paige even have a match? Is Nikki even scheduled to defend her title on Sunday?
I will look
As
at
of
the
right now?
card. Let me go look at the card because I'm not entirely sure either. And that's how pathetic the card is for Battleground. Nobody really knows. Like nobody cares.
I
Like
know Lesnar versus Rollins, which we may get to that. But oh, speaking of Lesnar versus Rollins, there's a great article by one of our newest writers up on the site right now. So when you're done listening to us, if you haven't read it, go check that out. Um, Lesnar versus Rollins and the New Day versus Primetime Players, just because I'm a New Day mark. But oh, and Cena versus Owens, because how do you miss that?
yeah, I mean outside of what they pushed yesterday, obviously there's going to be the title match and there's going to be a U.S. title match. But anything for the mid cards is seemingly irrelevant because why does it matter? They didn't build towards it at all.
I know Sheamus versus Orton. I think it was announced today that Raw Truth versus Barrett in a battle for the crown match.
No, they did that last night towards the end of the show.
No, I just seen it. I think it was announced that it will happen at Battleground.
Yeah, no, they announced it on Raw yesterday.
Oh, they did. See,
Yeah, towards the end of Raw. It's Ryback versus Big Show versus The Miz for the Intercontinental belt for some reason.
that that will put butts in seats.
I didn't even realize that was a thing. Randy Orton versus Sheamus. We don't want to. Sorry, this isn't a battleground go home show. No, as of right now, according to this, there is no Divas match on the card.
So there's no title match on Sunday, officially announced at this moment. So why have them debut?
So they can have their feel good moment instead of waiting till next, Monday and give them a proper build at SummerSlam.
Like the proper build could still be there, but why do it this way?
Yeah, that's what I mean. The
Yeah,
whole
it's just
show was
like
the go home.
so everything should lead to Battleground. Some kind of match should have been made last night. Like if Stephanie was going to come out, she should have came out and like she could have gave Paige one last opportunity at the Divas title or something, and then introduce the other people. Make it a lumberjack match or something at Battleground with the NXT Divas surrounding the ring, and then have them take sides.
Yeah, and I think that would have been a lot more interesting. Like, oh, hey, here are these divas. Are NXT divas? Are they gonna make a name for themselves? Are they gonna align with somebody? Are they going and helping out Paige? Are they gonna form up with Team Snooki? Like, what's going on here? I think even like to me, I would be okay with that because that sounds a lot more interesting. Saying, hey, Brie or whoever the fuck has the title, I don't even care. You're having one last match with Paige. It is a lumberjill match or something like that, or you're gonna have someone in your corner. Like, okay, well then I'm gonna bring out more people. I don't know. Something interesting. Long story short, or announce the lumberjacks that are gonna be lumberjills that are gonna be in the match. And have the NXT divas line the ring and provide some counterweight and stuff like that. It's just more interesting to me than what they did.
Right, and that was my problem. It just didn't make sense to have Stephanie out there. Had Stephanie not been out there and Paige just introduced them, or they just come out and align with Paige, whatever, like it just would have been better. It just would have been better. But Stephanie ruined that entire segment. One of the people were saying that Stephanie was trying to steal the spotlight, which I kind of agree because she had no business being out there. It made no sense whatsoever.
I agree.
And then yeah, we already talked about the crowd, right?
Yeah, we did.
Okay,
So this
stupid
was
Atlanta
awesome.
crowd.
And let's go from the bad and talk about the good. And that being the triple threat match. For me, sitting there trying to say I hate triple threat matches, this one was a good triple threat match. I thought the whole segment, which lasted like almost a half an hour or so, if I remember correctly, it was a really long match.
Not to mention, Rusev had me laughing on the microphone when he was talking to Kevin Owens about. So I forget the first thing he said, but then he was like, "You have two first names, so pick one." Like, it was just, it was funny hearing stuff like that come from Rusev.
I agree. Rusev really is showing his worth, I guess, basically. Like we had our doubt. I had a lot of doubt that he could really transition into something other than, his dominant brute Russian, but he's showing a lot more creativity and diversity that I was not expecting.
I agree. I was never a huge Rusev fan. I'm still not really a huge Rusev fan. I'm not completely sold on him, but I see the potential and what he could eventually do.
I agree. And I don't even know where to start for this triple threat. It's one of the few times I've actually watched Raw and was just like a little baby watching wrestling for the first time. Like, damn, was that a really good showing.
Cesaro pulled out some crazy stuff like that corkscrew over the top. The interesting thing about it was it wasn't just a normal suicide dive that like everyone in NXT only knows how to do.
Yeah.
That was cool. And then their Tower of Doom.
Oh yeah. That was pretty freaking nuts. Owens just looked like a boss.
it was just a crazy match that we won't expect on Raw.
And
Um,
I'll probably end up watching it again just because I was happy with it. It even had 2 commercial breaks during it, and it didn't even feel like it. Like it was one of the few times on Raw where it was like a must-see match, and proving that Vince McMahon wants this whole decree that matches have to be short because people lose their attention span and all this stuff, and it proved that long matches pay off. They all three of them told a great story, had a story to tell, told a great story, and put on a great match.
and nobody was buried for losing
No,
that match.
and I can't remember which follower I was making. I was going back
Rick
and forth
Santos.
with. Was it Rick Santos trying to
Yeah,
sit
he
there and
said,
say that people were going to be, no one's going to get buried in this match?
and then you're like, loser gets buried.
Yeah. So, and then I sent him a photo of a buried alive match. But I
Yeah.
mean, there are certain matches, and I've said this before, where the performance outweighs the outcome. And that's a
Cesaro
slippery
Cena
argument.
last week.
What?
Cesaro versus Cena last week.
Exactly. And this match, like, even though I think it was ridiculous to have Owens walk out, it made sense in the confines of the story told. So I'm not angry about it. And I thought it made the match even more interesting because the whole time for me, I was waiting for Owens to come running back out. While I knew he wasn't going to come back out until, you know, whoever won that match fought Cena afterwards, it was more like, wait, what if WWE actually moves to a different style of booking? What if they try something different and quit playing it safe?
But the thing about the Owens walkout is he kind of actually explained it as he was walking out, saying,
Oh
I
yeah.
got my match on Sunday. A
And
lot
it
of
was that
times,
small detail that really makes it worthwhile, where other times they're just proving that wins and losses don't matter, so they're just gonna walk out of their match. Like earlier in that day when Big Show went chasing the Miz. Like that was stupid. It lacked any bit of logic to think that Big Show could catch the Miz.
yeah, it
And
just,
but nothing was explained there. He could have easily come back out or something. But Owens sitting there saying, forget it, I got a match Sunday. Why do I have to do this?
it
I thought it
made
was good.
perfect sense.
It made perfect sense.
My only thing, I don't have an issue with Rusev going over, but I did have another thought. What if Cesaro had won, and then during the match with Cena, Cena's kind of dominant because Cesaro just had this
Yeah.
very long match, but Cesaro hits just enough moves that he might possibly be able to pull out the victory, kind of like what Rusev did. But then you have Cena put him in the STF, and Cesaro passes out, almost like Austin Brett at WrestleMania 13. I just
But they
think like,
they just did the pass out spot. And I'm not really looking forward to seeing it again.
yeah,
And I'm
but
not,
this would make sense. It would make sense here because he just had one match and now he's having another match.
I could see it. That's a good point.
Like, I mean, I get what you're saying if it was like a normal match and they just don't give up, but I mean,
Yeah.
having one match, like two matches.
And with someone like Cesaro, it makes sense because he's such a beast.
You have him get like almost to the ropes, but right as he's going to reach the ropes, he like just passes out right there. So he like barely misses.
That would be kind of cool. I'll allow it.
I mean, the story's played out just fine because Owens came out and attacked Rusev, but it still kind of doesn't make sense because why would like, I understand why Owens came out, but then it's a heel attacking a heel kind of thing, and it just like heels are supposed to be friends with
He
heels.
wanted
That's how
to
wrestling works.
save his title belt to fight Cena on Sunday.
Yeah, like it made sense. Like I get why he did, but it's just like
There's ways
a
they
heel
could have
versus
done
a
it
heel.
better. They definitely didn't do
Yeah,
anything bad. And what more can we really say? That was just a really good match. That was a really good segment on Raw.
it was. It was a great segment.
Well, do you wanna? Is there anything more to really say about that?
I think we covered all that.
Okay. Do you want to end here or do you want to keep going?
we can go Rollins Lesnar if we want. Throw out some ideas, or
You want to do the 2 hour Raw? Your argument there?
yeah, we could go 2 hour Raw real quick.
I should bring this home.
Speaking of how long this segment was and how great the entire thing was, and then you add in the Diva segment, which we weren't happy with, but a lot of people were happy with. Um, then you have the whole Rollins Lesnar story. The mid card wasn't built on this show at all. So you
Mm-mm.
take those, like, all the fluff out. Truth versus
Barrett.
who did he fight? Barrett and
The
Big
Intercontinental
Show.
Tag Team match.
Yeah, like, you take all that out, and you have Rollins Lesnar, you have the Divas, you have this long U.S. title segment, and then you have Rollins Lesnar again. You've almost filled a 2 hour show. This Raw would have been great,
And I
but
agree.
because you have so much filler as Barrett Truth and I don't know what else you had. That 6-man tag with,
There's
even though I
also
love New Day.
a pretty decent match with Adrian Neville at the end there.
Oh, speaking of the crowd
Okay.
and Adrian Neville, Cody Rhodes makes his return, or Stardust, whatever we want to call him, makes his return to the ring in Atlanta, the home of WCW,
The Dusty
down
territory.
south, where Dusty ran the world, and he gets a lukewarm reaction.
Yeah.
I was highly upset. Not to mention that the dumbasses chanting "This is awesome" during the Divas match or Divas segment when they hadn't done anything, and then to
Mm-hmm.
give Cody, Stardust, whatever, no kind of welcome back or reaction. I know he's supposed to be heel, but it's not like he came out and talked about how the Falcons can't win a Super Bowl. Like, he did nothing to not get a reaction. Like,
Yeah.
it
I
should have been
mean,
huge.
the biggest problem with Cody is that he looks like a villain on Power Rangers. But even still, you pop for the kid. If you're a Dusty
You
fan,
welcome him back. You're in Dusty territory. Like, if it wasn't for Dusty and Flair, like, Atlanta would not have wrestling.
exactly. A lot of the South would have had nothing but the Freebirds to look forward to, and everybody hates the Freebirds except their own Chris Daria. So, who wants to celebrate PSAs?
It really irritated me, and I'm like, please don't go back to Atlanta WWE. But apparently they're going back in November for Survivor Series.
Yay.
Just make sure Cody Rhodes isn't on the card.
Yeah. Unless he's fighting Arrow again.
Because Atlanta has no idea what history means.
Not at all.
But if I was a Falcons fan, I wouldn't want to relive history either.
Oh, poor Falcons. I actually have a lot of family in Atlanta, and it's just kind of like, can't you just move somewhere that's better? Like, I want to go on vacation, but I don't want a vacation to Atlanta. And now that they don't know anything about wrestling, it's making it a lot harder.
It's like you love to break kayfabe. The audience loves to break kayfabe every chance they get, and now you get a chance to welcome somebody back after, like, a legend passed away. His father passed away, a man who did a lot in your city, and you don't care. Like,
Well, that was even the thing too with what is his name now? Curtis Axel. And when he won the Intercontinental title on Father's Day and in Chicago at Payback, like, I'm pretty sure he was still a heel, but the crowd was really happy for him because even though Mr. Perfect didn't really do much in Chicago, no any like noteworthy ties to Chicago, people were still happy because screw if you're heel or face, you just won your dad's title on Father's Day. Like, I was fighting back a few dust clouds in the eyes and had tons of goosebumps. It was a great moment because it doesn't matter what the character is; they're having a great moment. You know, Bret Hart could have been the biggest heel in the company, but when he came out and wrestled after Owen passed away, you're still going to cheer him. Heel or face doesn't matter.
It doesn't. There's moments that like,
Transcend
and that's
story.
what irritated me because during the Divas segment, the idiot crowd gave them their moment and they did nothing. They were just happy to see them there. Like that segment was horrible, but they gave it a pass because they were happy for those girls to get their moment. But you don't give history its moment. Like you don't give lineage its moment. It was
It was
horrible.
perplexing. Put it that way. And I think something like a 2 hour Raw where they could really build stuff like that and get some importance to it. I think instead of drowning it in a 3 hour Raw of garbage or 3 hours of garbage. I don't know. I don't know.
It's still he makes his first return. Like that pop should have been more.
I agree, and I think that if they didn't drown it out with so much ridiculousness, and maybe gave it a little bit of a proper build or something, I don't know, like a 2 hour Raw, or even if like technically a 3 hour Raw, they should have done the same. But WWE dropped the ball there. Long story short, and I think it's something having to do with the amount of stuff they have to produce for one show that minor details that could be big get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. Or like big details that could make things bigger get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know
There's
how you wanted to play that because I mean, I still have yet to watch a Dusty special because I'm still really upset about him passing away. I can't bring myself to watch that. Seeing Stardust wrestle last night was really relaxing. Like, oh, it's a breath of fresh air and it's a little bit of closure, and maybe I can come to terms to it like he had to. Dusty passing, that is.
yeah. Uh,
I don't know. And I think moments would mean a little bit more if they can get onto a 2 hour Raw, as we saw in the Attitude Era and stuff like that. Not everything
I'm
has to be on there, you know. And my only worry is with what you said for the go home scenario of the Divas, the opening and closing segment, is that there was only one, maybe two wrestling matches in the whole show. Now, why do I want to watch a wrestling show for maybe half an hour of wrestling?
but I mean, in a 3 hour Raw, we get half an hour of wrestling on normal nights. Last night was an anomaly.
That's a good point, and that's a valid argument. Damn, I was just thinking of like all the atrocious Hogan TNA segments where the entire show maybe had one wrestling match, and everything was
And
like
all
the really bad camera angles to try to film this person in another room with a perfect mic recording them. It's just terrible. Okay, well, let's close it up here. It's almost an hour. I can't really talk about much more.
no,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
this is good. Just
Well,
IWC stop giving people passes for horrible segments just because you like that person.
I
Like
agree.
stop.
And I think it really comes down to the casual viewer. Is that a bad segment? Probably not. But to anybody with half a brain, was that a bad segment? Of course.
But
There's
I
no
mean,
way.
if you're a casual viewer just watching and you know Stephanie is the biggest heel in the company, now you're out here. It's like, okay, why is she introducing these people? Are they? They should be bad guys. Oh wait, they're siding with Paige. How does this make sense?
Oh, I know. I'm trying to find a way to maybe frame it into some defense, but it really doesn't hold up to any ounce of speculation or
The
strict.
only thing that you could defend the WWE still doesn't care about their Divas division, and the segment last night proved it because all they know, like, because they're just saying that it doesn't matter. The crowd's going to cheer because it's Charlotte, Sasha, and Becky. They're going to cheer no matter what they do.
Kind of like Cena.
The crowd's going to chant "You suck" no matter what he does. They're not going to cheer for his opponent. Like
Yeah.
it
Well,
doesn't
that was
matter
the
who's.
other ounce of cleanup I wanted to have out there for that triple threat. And I think I put this on Twitter. Cena's segments have been the most must see thing on Raw for over a month now. Like almost the only thing worth watching on Raw. that you want to view in every week to see what's going to happen with the open title challenge or open US challenge, whatever. And then people are going to turn around and still say they hate Cena. Like, are you that daft? He's the must-see thing on Raw. Why are you then going to bash him? But that's a rant for another day because we're continuing to be impressed by him. And let's wrap this sucker up. You want to
Make
sign off
sure,
there?
yeah, follow us on Twitter at PMW Podcast. Like us on Facebook. Our numbers are growing, which means we're gonna do a lot more on there. Read our articles. We just hired new writers, so those articles should be coming soon. And I think Thursday we have another podcast coming where we're going to review Wednesday Night Wrestling. So stay tuned because we got a lot of things coming this week.
I agree. We are continuing to grow, and it's been pretty exciting. The more you guys get invested with us, the more we get invested with you. And it's been fun seeing how much we have been growing. And we want to thank you guys. Be sure to follow me Twitter at Jesus Oliver. Follow us on Twitter at PMW Podcast. Join our conversations on Facebook. And keep checking our website out because we have a bunch of more content coming to you guys. Peace.